It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Happy Friday. NBA playoffs start up tomorrow. Can't wait. Your Indiana Pacers play at 1 o'clock. Trust me, we're going to talk about that a ton. Jared Dubin coming on the show at 11. Zack Gray at 11:40 to give you some nice bets. But we're going to start with former Indianapolis Colt Joe Flacco. There's a clip. It's going around. Went kind of viral. And Joe Flacco is back in Cleveland. And there's a decent chance he's going to be the starting quarterback of the Browns this year. At some point, probably not to start the season because, the Browns are paying Deshaun Watson too much money for him to not be the starter at the beginning of the season. So eventually, decent chance Joe Flacco takes over. But it's pretty normal for starting quarterbacks, new quarterbacks, new guys that are potentially going to make an impact to do some local radio hits. Okay, pretty normal thing. So Joe Flacco went on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland yesterday. And he was asked about how NFL teams deal with young quarterbacks now and how that's kind of changed during his time in the NFL. And he had a lot to say about it. Here's Joe Flacco on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland talking about how teams handle young quarterbacks in the NFL now.
What necessarily is different about the quarterback position than when you came into the league as a rookie? Or is it?
Hey, listen, there's definitely things that are different just in general. I don't want to necessarily get myself in trouble by giving you my exact thoughts on what's going on in the league right now. But everybody wants to get everybody out there right away. And listen, I get it. I wanted to, when I was a rookie, I wanted to play right away. That really wasn't the plan, but I did want to play right away. I think these days, though, just because there's not, you don't have to commit as much money in the draft with these guys. Obviously, the top picks are still getting a good amount of money, but they're not getting the type of money that was starting to happen. When I was a rookie, when you were a top draft pick, you were assigned a lot of money. I think it's become a little bit easier to draft these guys a little bit higher. So now you're getting guys that haven't played a ton of college games, maybe, and you've drafted them so high. So now there's a lot of pressure to get these guys on the field right away. And, so now just by the sheer numbers of it, you're going to get a couple guys that were probably drafted a little bit higher than they would have been 15, 20 years ago, because you would have really had to make a big commitment to them money-wise 20 years ago that you don't quite have to make now. And then because you do draft them so high, you have to play them. So now there's just naturally going to be a couple guys here and there that maybe you drafted in the top 5 or top 10 that maybe 20 years ago they would have been second-round picks, and they would have been willing to keep them on the bench for a little bit. And now because they're the third pick overall, you have to play them, and they're not quite ready. And then then mentally it hurts their development. So there's a lot of things I think that you could probably say, and that's what I'll go with.
Joe Flacco right there on radio in Cleveland talking about how teams deal with young quarterbacks now and how that's changed. Feels a little pointed in the direction of the Colts and Anthony Richardson. And I think that's how a lot of Colts fans took this. And he's clearly talking about the Colts and Anthony Richardson and how they've handled him and all these things. To be fair to Joe Flacco, what he said could be applied to a lot of different quarterbacks that have showed up and failed in the NFL. Joe Flacco, not the only older quarterback to have ever said this. Tom Brady, another older guy, also a big believer in the importance of having guys sit. He's been extremely vocal about it. He believes that guys should sit behind a veteran for a year or two, learn how to play the position, and then play. Either way, whether his comments are directly pointed at Anthony Richardson or not, when it comes to the Anthony Richardson situation, Joe Flacco's not wrong. I mean, we talk about the importance of fit all the time. And part of that is scheme related, but part of that is also how quickly do you play? Because Joe Flacco's right. There are some quarterbacks who shouldn't play immediately. And if he was talking about Anthony Richardson, it kind of feels like he was, then maybe he's right. He's not the only person who has this opinion. Bruce Arians said a pretty similar thing about 2 weeks ago. Listen to Bruce Arians, former Super Bowl winning coach, talking directly about Anthony Richardson.
Anthony, I think, needed 2 more years of college, as a passer, not as an athlete. He's a great athlete. But as a passer, I didn't see him coming out being able to beat anybody in 2 minute third down. And that's where you win in the NFL. If you can't win third down in 2 minutes, you're just an average guy. And I don't care how good you run. You don't run the ball in 2 minutes. As a quarterback, you throw it, and you command the game. I think his growth this year is going to be huge. If he can't make it, the growth that I think he can make, and I think he's going to put the work in. He's got a great reputation as a hard worker. So Daniel's pushing. Daniel's going to really push.
Bruce Arians right there talking directly about Anthony Richardson, saying he needed 2 more years to develop, not as an athlete, obviously, but as a passer. Joe Flacco and Bruce Arians clearly aren't wrong. The production we've seen from Anthony Richardson through, the 15 games that he's appeared in, not even played in from start to finish, hasn't been great. Maybe a year or 2 on the bench would have been the best thing for Anthony Richardson. He never gets hurt. Because, yes, he didn't play his rookie year. Yeah, but, you can't practice when you mess up your shoulder. And, you're just sitting and watching, and you can learn a little bit by watching. But being able to go out and actually practice and run scout team quarterback and figure out not only your system, but other team systems as well, that is a valuable thing. Because even if you're not running your team system, you're still getting reps against, starting NFL caliber players. And so, sure, he sat his rookie year, but it's because he was hurt. And then he comes out in his second season, and he's clearly not ready to go. And if the Colts decide to sit him for a year or 2, he never gets hurt. He gets 2 seasons to sit in that quarterback room and learn how to play quarterback. And then he gets 2 off seasons to improve his footwork and his accuracy. They could have played Gardner Minshew for 2 years. He almost won you the AFC South 2 years ago. They could have played him for 2 years, developed Anthony Richardson behind him, and then things would just be so incredibly different now if they had done this. There'd be a lot more excitement around the franchise going into this season. I think job security for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen would look incredibly different. I think that, the seat would still be hot, just not as hot as it is right now. Anthony Richardson wouldn't have added to his long list of injuries. There's a real sliding doors moment where if there's a decision made to sit Anthony Richardson, then Colts fans feel really different about the organization and Anthony Richardson heading into this season. And because, look, let's just be honest, the Colts have to win games this year. The draft, which is 6 days away, is going to play a major role in that because the Colts have a lot of needs. And there was a list released of all the players that the Colts have had come in on visits so far that are eligible to be drafted. And I'm not going to run you through the whole list because I'm going to say some of these names. You're going to be like, who's that? And I don't want to do that to you. So I have the list in front of me. I'm just going to give you the important parts of this. When you look at this list of all of these players that, the Colts have had come in on visits, they only brought in 1 tight end. And I think Colts fans could see that, or you could see that and just be like, you know what? They're not going to take a tight end. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think the Colts know exactly who they want to take with that 14th pick. I don't care, or I don't think they care too much about who they talk to in terms of the prospects. If you remember last year, once the Falcons passed on Leatu Latu, his agent came to him. He was like, don't worry. You're going to be sitting here for a while because, no one else talked to you. No one else worked you out. So, and then Leatu Latu obviously gets picked by the Colts. It was really surprising to him because, as I said, the Colts didn't fully vet him the way that I guess other teams do. So the fact that Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland haven't come in on any visits, I'm sure that the Colts met with them at the combine, but the Colts know who they're going to take with that 14th pick, and whether or not they brought them in on a visit or not, I don't really think means all that much. What I do think we saw, though, is the Colts brought guys in that they may trade back for. Like, let's say they only want Tyler Warren. They aren't as interested in Colston Loveland. You know, Warren goes 10th, and then the Colts are like, all right, we'll trade back. You know, like the Colts brought in Josh Simmons, an offensive tackle out of Ohio State, who could go later in the first round. They brought in some other offensive tackles and edge rushers who are going to be late first round guys. So I do think that the Colts trading back is in the cards. I don't think trading up is, because, you know, that's just the history of Chris Ballard. So I do think the list is also pretty revealing as to what the Colts want to do. They brought in more offensive linemen for visits than any other position. Between offensive tackles and guards, they brought in 4 different offensive linemen, 3 of those guys being offensive tackles. And it makes sense. Matt Consalves, the snaps that he took last year didn't exactly inspire confidence. Braden Smith and Bernard Raymond, both in the final years of their contracts. Obviously, Braden Smith, the starting right tackle. Bernard Raymond, the starting left tackle. I'm just telling you, the Colts are taking a tackle at some point in this NFL draft. Maybe they trade back in the first round and they take it there. Maybe they trade up from the second round and they take a guy there. I don't know what they're going to do. But I'm pretty confident when I say the Colts are going to take an offensive tackle at some point. When you look at the needs, when you look at, you know, the positions that Chris Ballard likes to draft, and, you know, when you just look at Chris Ballard, I promise you, he's taking some offensive linemen here. They're going to take an offensive tackle at some point. The Colts also brought in 3 edge rushers, and I know you probably don't want to hear this. And you're probably not going to like this, but the Colts do need another edge rusher. They don't have a dominant one unless Leatu Latu develops into an awesome player. And, you know, the Giants general manager said this the other day. You can never have too many good edge rushers. So I do think an edge rusher is 1,000% in play for the Colts. Maybe it's not the first round. Maybe it's the second or the third round. But I do think that the Colts are going to look to take an edge rusher at some point. Speaking, staying with that defensive line, the Colts also brought in 2 different defensive tackles. I don't think they're in a rush to bring in anyone else, but Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner are both in their 30s. They have to replace those guys at some point. So maybe a defensive tackle falls, and we see the Colts take one at some point in this draft. We'll see. I'm not totally convinced that they are going to take a defensive tackle because they did sign a free agent defensive tackle in the offseason, but they could probably use one more. But I don't think that that's their greatest need on defense, so we may see them let that slide. The one concerning thing that I didn't see in terms of this list of players that the Colts hosted on visits, they did not host a single linebacker. That's concerning, because they need a linebacker. That 14th pick very likely is going to be used on a tight end. Or they'll trade down and grab an offensive lineman or an edge rusher. Makes sense, right? Like that, those assumptions are based off the Colts' needs and Chris Ballard's history. Those seem like the 2 most likely options. But they need a linebacker at some point. Once again, like the Colts have so many needs. Linebacker, edge rusher, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, right guard. A lot of needs on this Colts team. And I'm kind of scared that they're just going to kind of not worry about linebacker. I think they're going to go with this theory that they went with last year and it went terribly. If our defensive line's really good, then everything else should be fine. You remember that? Oh, if our defensive line's really good and we get after the passer, which the Colts didn't do, then our secondary won't have to cover as long and they'll be fine. Didn't work. And I'm just really hoping that the Colts don't do the same thing with linebacker and their offensive line or defensive line. If our defensive line does a good job of getting after the passer and stuff in the run, then our linebackers become less important. And that's just not true. Linebackers, very important. But when you have all these needs, like the Colts do, you got to sacrifice on something. And just looking at that list, doesn't seem like they're overly concerned about who they're going to take to play linebacker alongside Zaire Franklin next season. I got to be honest, though. I don't care who they take. If they draft an edge rusher at 14 and that dude shows up and wins like defensive rookie of the year and is a legitimately good player from the jump, I'm going to get over it. They bring in an offensive tackle who winds up being a stud in the NFL for 10 years, not going to care. They bring in Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. Apparently, Shane Steichen said that, when it comes to tight ends, he would like a separator. Like if they do that, if they bring in Colston Loveland, that's cool. As long as he's good. I don't really care. That's really all that I care about. And hopefully the Colts can draft a guy who can make that happen, who can come in and make an immediate impact. Speaking of immediate impacts, we got the NBA playoffs going on. My guy, your guy, our guy, Tyrese Halliburton, got to make an immediate impact. And, we do this just about every Friday. We do this thing called Funless Friday, and I've got one. It is NBA playoff themed. Shout out to John Buzzard for the idea. Very, very loyal listener. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I've got a Funless Friday. It is my NBA playoffs wish list. I've got something for every team in the playoffs except for the teams in the play-in, because let's be honest, you don't care about who the 8th seed is, and I don't really either, because I don't think any of them have any sort of chance of beating of beating the Cavaliers or the Thunder in that first round. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes, my NBA playoff wish list.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Mother's Day is quickly approaching. If you're looking to have a little bit of fun with your wife, I got the deal for you. If you want to eat, drink, socialize, hang out, Indulge Indy is for you. Come out to the Ritz Charles in Carmel on Saturday, May 10th, to have endless samples of wine, spirits, and ready-to-drink cocktails, and sample charcuterie board type foods and chocolate. Once again, this is May 10th. Tickets are $45, $90 for you and your wife to have a great time celebrating Mother's Day. No kids, just you two having a good time. Now, I got breaking news. As reported by Sean Wright, apparently an NBA insider, Damian Lillard is targeting a Game 2 return. We'll see. I don't know. I'll believe it when it happens. I really hope it doesn't, because that changes the series. I still think the Pacers are better than the Bucks. Even if Dame plays, I understand that the Pacers were 1-3 against Milwaukee during the regular season, but the regular season and the playoffs are just like they're not the same thing. They're not. Damian Lillard has really struggled against Andrew Nembhard this year. I do think that that's a piece of this that people are forgetting about. And the Pacers have plenty of defenders to throw at Damian Lillard. When the Bucks play Damian Lillard, that gives, the Pacers a guy to attack offensively. Like, he makes the Bucks worse defensively. He just gives them another guy who can go score. You're not having to rely on Giannis for as much, which for me, I'm honestly fine with, because those games without Damian Lillard, Giannis was pretty incredible. So even if Dame comes back in Game 2, I still like the Pacers to win that series. Now, Funless Friday, this is my NBA playoffs wish list, things that I'm hoping happens throughout the playoffs. And I tried to involve every single team. And with the Pacers, my wish is for them to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. So, well, Jonathan, why aren't you wishing for them to get back to the NBA Finals? I don't know. It felt greedy. As good as this Pacers team has been, once again, in terms of net rating, they've been the sixth best team in the NBA since that 10-15 start. They've been the third best team in the Eastern Conference since that 10-15 start, only behind the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. So I didn't really see them beating both of those teams. Maybe they pull off an upset in that second round series against Cleveland and then meet, Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. Once again, we'll have to wait and see what kind of happens there. But that is my wish for the Indiana Pacers in this series. My next list, or my next wish, for the Warriors and Lakers to play against each other in the second round of these playoffs, I want Steph and LeBron again. I do. Their battles throughout the year have been nothing short of spectacular. They're always entertaining, and they're both old now. That's the simple reality of it. Steph's 37 now. He might still be 36, but I'm pretty sure he's 37. LeBron's 40. They're both having really good seasons. They've both got legitimate co-stars in Jimmy Butler and Luka Doncic. Both teams I could see making it to the finals. I don't think it'll happen because I really like the Thunder, and I think that team is excellent. But I want this again. I want one last hurrah of Steph Curry taking on LeBron James. It'd be great for the ratings. I know that that's what the NBA wants, because everyone's going to tune in and watch those two superstars go at it once again. But that is probably the top thing on my wish list. I want that to happen so incredibly badly. Number 2, the second thing on my wish list, is for the Knicks to lose to the Pistons. I think the Knicks are overrated. They're 15-23 against teams over 500. They didn't win a game against the Celtics, Thunder, or Cavaliers, the three best teams in the league. think they're a little overrated. I get it. They've got several big names, and big names do matter whenever we talk about the NBA playoffs because big names tend to be stars, and stars are what win playoff series. Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. Maybe they'll be as great as everyone seems to think that they are, but I'm not convinced. And this Pistons team is incredibly tough. Incredibly tough. And we'll kind of see how it goes. I also wouldn't be surprised if Cade Cunningham ended up being the best player in that series. That dude can flat out ball. My third wish on my NBA playoffs wish list, injuries are going to happen. They happen every year throughout the course of the playoffs because these games are tough. They're physical. They're intense. You got to win 16 of them. It's a lot of games. And next on my wish list, I hope no one on the Thunder, Celtics, or Cavaliers get hurt. Those have been the three best teams in the league from the start of the year all the way up till now. One of those three teams should win the title. And I think the only way the Thunder don't come out of the West is if someone important gets hurt. I think the only way the Celtics and Cavaliers don't meet in the Eastern Conference Finals is if someone gets hurt. So hopefully all three of those teams can stay healthy throughout the course of the entire playoffs. Speaking of health, I hope that we get a fully healthy Kawhi Leonard for however long the Los Angeles Clippers are in the playoffs. The Clippers traded for him 3 years ago. It was longer than 3 years ago. I think he's had like one healthy playoff run with the Clippers the last 3 years. That's what I'm thinking of. He's been hurt in some way, shape, or form. And, the Clippers are going to be so tired of it. And this guy is finally healthy. He's playing some of the best. He's playing really well right now. He's not quite Toronto Kawhi Leonard, but he's still an excellent basketball player. This guy's still, he's one of the 10 best players in the world right now. But both ends of the floor. He can still guard. He's so strong. He just gets to wherever he wants on the floor, and he kind of bullies dudes, and he goes by bigger ones, and he's just awesome. And I want him to be healthy because healthy Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs is a guy that you do not want to play. You don't. The dude is just incredible, and I hope that he can stay healthy through the rest of these playoffs. He's only 33. Every time I think about Kawhi Leonard, I think he's so much older than what he actually is. But this dude's awesome. Trying to win, he's trying to win a championship for a third different team, which is really tough to do. He'd be the second player ever to do it. The other guy being LeBron James. And the Clippers are a team that people haven't talked about nearly enough. Part of that is because Kawhi's been in and out of the lineup, just doing the whole load management thing. And when your stars isn't playing, they're just not going to talk about you as much, especially when you're also the little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers. So I want a fully healthy Kawhi because you could make an argument, I don't know if I would agree with it, that the Clippers are the second best team in the Western Conference. That's how good this team has been. And they're going to play the Nuggets in the first round. I like the Nuggets in 7 just because they have Jokic and the Clippers don't. But Kawhi Leonard can undoubtedly equalize that series because of how good of a player he is. The fifth thing on my NBA playoffs wish list, I want for Ime Udoka and Draymond Green to get into it for the whole series. I want game 1, both guys full tilt on edge. Say, Jonathan, Ime Udoka, he's the coach. Certainly he's not going to get into it with players. Shortly before the season ended, this was literally last week, the Rockets and the Warriors played a very important game for both teams. Rockets trying to clinch the 2 seed, Warriors trying to stay in it. At that point, they were still eligible to be the 3 seed. Very important game. And Ime Udoka is heading off to the locker room. And they're up. They end up winning the game, and he gets asked about the Warriors and kind of their whole thing. He's like, look, we wanted to be super physical because we knew that as soon as they started crying, we would win. And they did. And the Warriors cried a lot. But usually when teams say this, they don't use the adjective cry or the verb cry. They say complain or get frustrated. Nah, Ime Udoka essentially called the Warriors babies, which I think is awesome. If you've if you know anything about Ime Udoka, that dude doesn't back down from anybody. You can go back and you can find clips of him and LeBron James like going at it when Ime Udoka is a head coach, and it's awesome. I think it's great. And I do think that part of what the Rockets are going to try to do in this series is get under the Warriors' skin, because we've seen Draymond Green full tilt, kick dude in the balls and do other things that he shouldn't do. And so I think that they're going to do what they can to try to get under his skin. I think Ime Udoka is going to play a part in that because he's got this young Rockets team that's never played in the playoffs before. And Ime, like, usually teams are player-led. I don't think that this Rockets team is. I think they are led by Ime Udoka, and he wants his team to be unafraid. And so he's going to go in there. He's going to poke the bear, and it's going to be great. Like, I can't believe I let this part out. In that game, like a week and a half ago, however long ago it was, like Steph Curry, who doesn't talk to anybody. Steph Curry is like one of the most chill superstars ever. I'm sure he talks trash, but you just don't realize it. Kind of like Larry Bird. No, like you can see Steph Curry and Ime Udoka going back and forth during that game. Like, I want full-blown Ime Udoka, full-blown Draymond Green going at each other for the entire series, because I think people are writing off the Rockets a little too easily here. They're a tough matchup for Golden State. I'm going to talk about that in my next segment when I give my official predictions for the NBA playoffs. But that series is going to be much tighter than what people think. It's going to be much more intense than I think people realize. And Ime Udoka is hopefully just going to take a bucket of gasoline and just dump it on this fire that is Draymond Green, and we're going to get a lot of fireworks. Very excited for that series, if you can't tell. My last thing on the wish list is for Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner to find their offensive groove. Magic got off to a great start, had a lot of injuries. Jalen Suggs, he's not playing. He was really important to them. Paolo Banchero, right oblique. Franz Wagner, right oblique. A lot of issues, a lot of injuries. Mo Wagner also hurt. And the issue with the Magic is the offense. Like, this is one of the best defensive teams in the league. They're going to have, a lot of options in terms of who's going to guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all those things. I think we're going to see a lot of Anthony Black since Jalen Suggs isn't playing. So the question for the Magic in that series is, like, how are they going to be able to score enough? Can they score enough points to hang with Boston? The answer is no. Boston's winning that series. Let me be very clear. But Paolo Banchero is, the best version of himself, where he's getting to the rim and he's getting to the free throw line and he's posting up smaller guys. Like, he can be very problematic. Franz Wagner, same thing. When he's getting to the rim, when he's getting to the free throw line, he's really problematic. If they can both find a way to knock down 2 or 3 threes a game, then they become really problematic. So I just want those two guys to find their groove, because if they don't, Boston will win that series in like 4 or 5 games. But if they do, then Boston will win in 6. That's kind of what I'm expecting. So those are my wishes for this NBA playoffs. Once again, I'll run you back through them. Pacers reach the Eastern Conference Finals. The Warriors and Lakers play in the second round. The Knicks lose to the Pistons in the first round. No one on the Thunder, Celtics, or Cavaliers get hurt. Kawhi Leonard stays healthy for however long the Clippers are in the playoffs. Ime Udoka, Draymond Green fight it out for the whole series. And Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner find their offensive groove in that series against Boston. We got Jared Dubin coming on the show to talk about the NBA playoffs here in about 25 minutes. 11:40, Zack Gray is going to join the show to give out some bets. But when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to give you my predictions for the NBA playoffs. We'll talk a little bit more about Damian Lillard eyeing a game to return from injury. All that coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
Just send them a text.
Text TRUE to 200-300 to get started today with Zelfie. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Text TRUE to 200-300 right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text TRUE to 200-300. That's TRUE to 200-300. TRUE to 200-300.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. 20 minutes out from Jared Dubin joining the show to talk about the NBA playoffs. Speaking of which, I'm going to give you my predictions for the Eastern and Western Conference playoff games. Right now, we'll obviously start with Pacers-Bucks. Pacers fans, I want to know, are you panicking? Damian Lillard eyeing a Game 2 return in this series. We'll see if, the Bucks are playing chicken. They did this a lot last year, talking about Giannis coming back. We'll see if that's, what they're doing here. Game 2, though, oddly specific, also kind of close. So we'll see. I don't think it matters whether Damian Lillard plays or not. The Pacers have been the sixth best team in basketball since December 13th. So since that 10-15 start, they have been the third best team in the Eastern Conference. And I get it. They've struggled with Giannis. They're 1-3 against the Bucks this season. All that good stuff. Playoffs and the regular season are two very different things. They just are. I still like the Pacers in 7. Bucks, not a very good team on the road. Neither are the Pacers. Give me the Pacers. I think home court advantage is what wins them this series. So make sure you show up to that game tomorrow, 1:00 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Pacers, they are the better team. They are. And I'm taking them. I think Tyrese Halliburton has a big series. I think he plays really well. I'm talking like 23-11. That's what he averages. I don't think we're going to have passive Tyrese, which is what we got last year. I don't think he opens the series with like a 9-point game and you feel like he's not on the floor. I think we get very aggressive Tyrese Halliburton, and I think he plays really well throughout the series. Boston, they're going to play the Magic, which they would have much preferred played the Hawks. Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, two guys who can win games for you against anyone. They took Cleveland to 7 games last year. Franz really struggled in that game 7. Paulo Banchero, I believe, went for 40, if I remember correctly. So, they got two guys who can really go play. They're just not as good as Boston. When you look at the odds in Vegas, the Thunder have the best odds to win it at plus 175. The Boston Celtics right behind them at plus 185. Boston's really good. With that being said, Orlando, you're going to feel them. They are physical. They play great defense, 4th best defense in the league if you go by defensive rating. So I think that they're going to make things really tough. It'll be interesting to see how the Celtics attack the Magic. Probably a lot of isolating Wendell Carter. If Corey Joseph continues to be the starting point guard, then they'll isolate him a bunch. But in those minutes where like Anthony Black's on the floor and Jonathan Isaac's out there too, like it'll just be really interesting to see how Boston tries to deal with that Magic defense. But the Magic just don't have enough offense to win that series. So give me the Celtics in 6 in that series. Cavaliers, they're going to beat whoever they play in the first round. They get the winner tonight of Hawks and Heat. Series won't be close. If I was Cleveland, though, I'd rather play the Hawks because, to the Miami Heat's credit, Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches in the sport, and Miami's been a really good defensive team all year. Cavaliers have been the best offensive team in the sport all year. So Cavaliers beat whoever they play, but I do think that they'd rather play the Hawks just because the Hawks defensively aren't quite as good. And, dealing with Trae Young is, not really that big of a deal. Knicks, Pistons, as excited as I am to watch the, Pacers play the Bucks, even more so excited now because Damian Lillard is going to play in the series. I think it's going to make the series better. I think the games are going to be a little more intriguing. Once again, still like the Pacers in 7, even if Damian Lillard comes back in game 2. Knicks Pistons, though, I got to be honest, I'm more excited for this series than any other one in the Eastern Conference. Maybe period. Actually, that's not true. I know the series I'm most excited for. It's out west. I will tell you about it when we get to it. Continuing to go through my order here. Knicks Pistons, pump for it. Pistons are tough. They're so tough. Cade Cunningham is an all-NBA caliber player. Has been for a while. He just finally has a competent head coach and a team that won more than 14 games. The Knicks are thin. They got like 7 guys that I like legitimately trust to play in a playoff series. The thing, though, is like with a healthy Jalen Brunson, this Knicks team's awesome. But how healthy is Jalen Brunson? Sprained his ankle, only played a couple games. He has had a full week off to, rest and recover. And so he's probably going to be fine. And so because of that, because of that, I think the Knicks win this series. I like them in 7. I do. And part of that is, injuries are obviously never a good thing, but they can be. Especially when you're a team like the Knicks, who relied so heavily on Jalen Brunson to do so much offensively. It was a lot of him and Karl Anthony Towns, right? And rightfully so. Those are the Knicks' 2 best offensive players, but Jalen Brunson sprains his ankle. It's like crap. Love Karl Anthony Towns, but he's not going to bring the ball up the floor. Like, we're not just going to isolate him the same way that we would, Jalen Brunson. So, like, what are we going to do? Oh, wait. We have Mikal Bridges, who for a lot of the season was just told to go stand in the corner, make catch-and-shoot threes, attack closeouts, and play really good defense, which is great. And, like, he's very capable of doing that. That's what he did for Phoenix when they made it to the Western Conference Final, or excuse me, the NBA Finals, a few years ago. But he can do a lot more than that. He can handle the ball. He can run screen and roll. He can create his own shot. And it was as if Coach Tibbs forgot about that. That's what it felt like. And then, but now, during that time that Jalen Brunson was out, like, they had to rely on Bridges a little bit more. So hopefully, or not hopefully, because I hope the Knicks lose, hopefully they just stick Bridges in the corner again and ask him to not do very much, because he's a much better player and can do a lot more than what the Knicks asked of him. But how he plays in the series, I think is going to be really important. If he has a great series, then the Knicks are going to win. But the Knicks just stick him in the corner and have him attack closeouts and shoot threes, then I like the Pistons' chances a little better, because Cade Cunningham, dude's awesome. Can't wait for the entire basketball world to see him play against the Knicks. The Western Conference the Western Conference is a little different than the East. Let's be like, if we're being really honest, when you look at the Eastern Conference, it feels like we're going to get the Celtics and the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Feels like we're set for that collision course. Feel actually really confident that that's what we wind up getting. Western Conference, total opposite. I feel confident about one thing, and that is that the Thunder are the best team. The rest of it feels like a crapshoot. If you wanted to tell me that the Clippers were the second best team, cool. Yeah, get it. I completely understand that. Kawhi Leonard, awesome. James Harden, having a great year. If you wanted to tell me that the Warriors were the second best team, number one in defensive rating in the entire NBA since the trade deadline. They've, they're like, 20-3 or whatever, whenever Jimmy Butler plays, and, they're rolling, and Steph Curry is still very much Steph Curry. So, maybe they're the second best team. And then someone pipes up and they're like, no, it's Luka and LeBron and the rest of the Lakers. And I'm like, oh yeah, they have Luka and LeBron. So, and then someone else is like, what about the Nuggets? They're finally fully healthy. Jamal Murray and Jokic and Michael Porter Jr., hey, watch out for them. It's like, yeah, they're pretty good too. So I don't know who the second best team in the Western Conference is, which makes the Western Conference playoffs so much fun. I want to start with what is the series that I am most excited for. I cannot wait to watch this young, athletic Houston Rockets team led by the fearless Ime Udoka play against the older, veteran, less athletic, ball movement-based Golden State Warriors. It is a tough matchup for Golden State. I think people are writing off the Rockets way too easily here. Can't wait to talk to Jared Dubin coming up here in about 12 minutes about this series. Very excited to get his thoughts on this series, and obviously the Bucks and Pacers as well, especially with Damian Lillard potentially coming back in game 2. That young, inexperienced Rockets team, though, is going to give the Golden State Warriors everything they can handle. Amen Thompson is the perfect guy to guard Steph Curry. Steph Curry has really struggled against the Rockets this year, only averaging 16 points on like 36% shooting. It's not great. That's not normal Steph Curry. So the Rockets are going to give them some fits. I do think, though, that their lack of offense at the end of games is going to cost them. So I like the Warriors to win the series in 6. But it's a tough 6 games. Like, every game is coming down to the wire. And I think that the Warriors, playoff experience, because outside of Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams, the Rockets don't have any. Meanwhile, you look at the Warriors, and it's Draymond Green, who's, 4-time champ, Steph Curry, 4-time champ. Moses Moody was on that 2022 NBA Finals team. Jimmy Butler's played in the finals twice. Kevon Looney, I think he's been there for all 4 titles. If not, he's been there for at least 2 of them. So, that team has a lot of experience. The Rockets don't. Can't wait for the series. We get Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green and just a lot of big, aggressive personalities. Can't wait to watch that series. The Thunder, they're going to get the winner of the Grizzlies and Mavs tonight. It's probably going to be the Grizzlies. I think they'd rather play the Grizzlies just because the Mavericks are huge. And playing against sides is never fun. Doesn't matter. The Thunder, they'll sweep or gentlemen sweep whoever they play in that first round series, whether it's the Grizzlies or the Mavericks. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander probably going to win the MVP. Probably not. I don't think it's a definite, because both he and Jokic have had outstanding seasons. And so I am just very intrigued to kind of see who they play, but Thunder all the way. They are the best team in the NBA, and they're also my pick to win the NBA Finals. Lakers, Timberwolves, that series is going to be awesome. The Lakers, I think, are better than the Timberwolves, even though if you wanted to tell me that the Timberwolves roster top to bottom is better, that's great. The Lakers have the 2 best players in this series, and LeBron James and Luka. I also think this is a really good matchup for the Lakers because, yes, while the Timberwolves can go small, they don't go small as well as the Lakers do. They don't. They're going to go small, the Lakers. They're going to put Rui Hachimura at the 5. Rudy Gobert is going to get played off the floor like he tends to do in the NBA playoffs. The Timberwolves are then going to have to play, like Julius Randle at the 5, and they'll have McDaniels out there and Anthony Edwards and all that good stuff. The Lakers are going to have LeBron James and Luka on the floor when they go small. I'm taking them. Okay, they should win the series. But to be fair to the Timberwolves, they have been playing really well. Anthony Edwards is having an outstanding shooting season. You're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but Anthony Edwards made more threes, 320, than any other player in the NBA. He is the 3rd player in the history of the NBA to shoot 39% or better from 3 while taking 10 3-point attempts per game or more. He shot 39% from 3. He shot 39% from 3 on 10 attempts per game. He's the 3rd player ever to do it. Klay Thompson did it once. Anthony Edwards has done it once. Steph Curry's done it 6 times, which is crazy. But Anthony Edwards, dude, can shoot it. I think hopefully the entire basketball world is going to realize this. He's a lot of free throws and a lot of threes and a lot of highlight dunks in there as well. He's good enough to be the best player in this series. I just don't expect him to be, but it'll be a lot of fun watching him duke it out with LeBron and Luka. Plus, the Timberwolves do have enough defenders to kind of throw at those two guys to make life at least somewhat tough on them, even though Luka averaged like 32, 10, and 8 against the Timberwolves in the playoffs last year. Clippers Nuggets, this is the last series. Let me say that one more time. Lakers in 6. I don't think I said that. Clippers Nuggets series feels weird. I don't think very many people had the Clippers finishing 5th in the West before the year started. I think people had higher expectations for the Nuggets than 4th in the West, but they had some slippage late. They've been dealing with injuries a lot this year. They've only had like a fully healthy starting lineup 34 times this year. They just fired their head coach, fired their GM. So it's going to be interesting. Jamal Murray's back. He's had another week to kind of nurse that calf injury. I think it was a calf. It may have been an ankle. Lower leg injury. And, I'm intrigued to see kind of how they go about it. They've got defenders that throw at Harden and Kawhi between Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown. So we'll see how it goes. Harden and Kawhi, obviously 2 guys that have had success in the playoffs before. I say that about Harden, and you're probably like, what are you talking about? The guy's been to multiple conference finals. He has made it to an NBA finals before as well, way back in 2012. So they have experience, both of these teams too. They're older, kind of more veteran teams. Very intrigued to kind of see how this goes. Zubac is a really good option to have defend Jokic. Zubac is also having an outstanding year this year, like could potentially be an all NBA guy. Like that's how good he's been. So I like the Nuggets in 6 because they have the best player in the series and Jamal Murray's back. That's such an important thing for them because those non-Jokic minutes, they're just better whenever Jamal Murray is available. So Nuggets in 6, Lakers in 6, Thunder in 4 or 5 over the Mavs or Grizzlies, Warriors in 6 over the Rockets, Knicks over the Pistons in 7, Cavaliers over whoever they play in 4, Boston over the Magic in 6, and Pacers over the Bucks in 7. Jared Dubin of LastNightInBasketball.com. He is set to join the show coming up here in about 4.5 minutes. We're going to run through all these different playoff series. It's going to be great. Jared always does an excellent job. Jared Dubin comes your way next.
Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice week. NBA playoffs start tomorrow. We got the final play-in games tonight, and we've got Jared Dubin joining the show of Last Night in Basketball.com to talk about the playoffs. But Jared, before we talk about the playoffs, you are a Cowboys fan, and I have to ask, what do you think they're going to do with that 12th pick?
Oh, man. Something that greatly annoys me, probably. That seems like it is what happens every year. I'm very interested in them adding some sort of playmaking on offense. I would be okay with pretty much anybody that can create explosive plays.
Totally fair. I like that. I feel the same way. Whenever the Colts are on the clock, I'm just like, this probably isn't going to go very well. But the Pacers play tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I don't know if you saw this report or not. I don't know if this is real or not, but Sean Wright reported last night that Damian Lillard is eyeing a Game 2 return. Don't know how real this is. I haven't seen anyone else report this, but how early in the series would Damian Lillard have to return for you to feel like the Bucks could win the series?
I hadn't seen that report, and I would say just generally, like, Shams will probably tell us when Dame is going to play, or Chris Haynes will probably tell us when Dame is going to play, and that's when we can sort of trust it. As far as when he'd have to return for me to think the Bucks would have a chance, I think that depends on what he actually looks like when he is back. Like, are we going to get the actual Damian Lillard that we've seen throughout his career, and especially in playoff games? If he's not that guy, then I'm not 100% sure it matters when he comes back, because the Bucks are going to need what he's able to bring at a peak level offensively. And I think more importantly, if he's getting picked on defensively in the way he's been, not just throughout his career, but even more so because he can't move as well. Obviously, he hasn't been, I would imagine, because the blood clot was in his calf, he hasn't been able to work out at the same level as if he was, experiencing something in his arm or his shoulder or something like that. I can't imagine he's going to be at peak condition. And it's hard for me to see the Bucks getting a ton of stops to begin with. If you have Dame out there at less than 100% and they're able to really pick on him in a way that it goes even above and beyond what you would usually be able to do, that's a pretty significant problem for Milwaukee too.
That's how I felt about it. Obviously the offensive boost that he provides is, you can't really deny that. He's been one of the better offensive players in the league for a long time now. But defensively, like you said, they weren't very good. They aren't very good defensively without him. And then you put him on the floor, it only makes him worse. I am curious, last year, Tyrese Halliburton would have games where, like game 1 against the Bucks, he scored 9 points. Game 1 in that series against the Knicks, he only scored 6. What do you kind of expect from him during this potential playoff run?
I think that this season played out in basically the exact inverse fashion for him that last year's did. Last year, he was playing like a first-team All-NBA guy for, 50 games or whatever it was. And he had the groin injury, and he was a different player after that. And he was a much less aggressive player after that. And I think you saw some of that in the playoff series that the Pacers had. This year, I think he was more like the end of last season version of himself for, 40, 50 games or whatever it was. And then over the last month and a half, 2 months of the season, he was the guy that he was early last year. He was much more aggressive, hunting his shot from 3 in particular off the dribble, and much more aggressive, I think, as a passer. And if we see that guy, then that's, the Pacers offense can be really, really difficult to stop. If he sort of reverts back to what he was down the stretch of last season and somewhat in the playoffs last season, and even for, not a majority of the season, but for stretches of this season where he wasn't as aggressive, that's obviously a little bit of a different animal, and the Pacers offense gets a little bit easier to stop.
Totally agree. I hope he's aggressive because I think he's one of the better scorers in the NBA. The issue is he just doesn't take enough shots. I think it was you wrote an article a while back talking about how good he's been shooting off the bounce this year. And that's just such a large part of his game. And I hope that he hunts that because Taurean Prince is a good defender, but not a great one. And so I'm kind of expecting really big things from Halliburton in the series. Joined by Jared Dubin of Last Night in Basketball.com. Who do you have winning this series?
I took the Pacers. I took them in 6 games just because I have way too much respect for Giannis to pick against the Bucks in less than 6. Like, I'm not going to say Giannis is only getting 1 game in a series. And I do think that the Pacers should be pretty solidly favored, so I couldn't see it going 7 either.
I took them in 7 just because the Pacers haven't been great on the road this year. And like you said, like beating Giannis in the regular season stuff, yet alone in the playoffs, it's even more difficult. So I'm with you. I like the Pacers. Even if Lillard comes back and he's normal Lillard, I still think I like the Pacers in 7.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Just the idea that the Bucks are going to be able to get stops consistently enough to win the series, just it's hard for me to see it.
That's how I feel as well. I want to talk about your Knicks because I think the series I'm most excited for is Rockets and Warriors, but Pistons Knicks is not far behind it. I've just really enjoyed watching Cade Cunningham this year and just this really tough Pistons team. I like the Knicks to win the series, but how tough do you think the Pistons are going to make? How tough of a series do you think this is going to be for the Knicks?
I think a lot of that depends on if the Knicks are actually willing to make adjustments when things don't go exactly the way they want. Like if the Pistons make an adjustment and have Jalen Duren not guard Karl-Anthony Towns but guard Josh Hart, is Tom Thibodeau willing to make an adjustment in reaction to that? Is he willing to play Deuce McBride more? And if Josh Hart isn't willing to shoot the threes that the Pistons are obviously going to gift him, he was willing to shoot them last year in the first round against the Sixers, and that basically won the Knicks the series because he was willing to take them and he actually made them. If something not like that is happening this year, are you willing to take him off the court? Are you willing to switch more on defense if the Cade Cunningham pick and rolls are putting you in rotation and you're not able to keep up and you're giving up open threes? Like the Knicks have the talent to win the series and win it in 5 games, but they can also, as we've seen throughout the season, make things more difficult than they should be by not being 100% on their game on defense and not being fast enough to adjust when things aren't going their way.
How would you evaluate the Knicks' depth? Because I think everyone understands how good Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby are. But what about those guys coming in off the bench? Are they as thin as they were last year?
I think that they've got like 7.5 guys, maybe. Like I think you can trust McBride and to a certain extent Mitchell Robinson off the bench. And then it's just a matter of like, is one of Landry Shamet or Cam Payne making their shots? And if so, you can keep them on the court. But other than that, I don't trust necessarily anybody else coming off the bench. So it's 7 guys that you feel pretty good about to varying degrees, and then 2 guys where you might be able to trust one of them and you might not.
That's how I feel about it too. It's like campaign minutes are either lovely or it's like, can we get this guy off the floor? And you usually know within the first like 30 seconds that he's out there. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be paying attention to in this series. And I've got this theory, Jared. I call it new guy theory. I think whenever a new guy shows up in sports, we overrate them a little bit. And I want to make sure I'm not doing that. What are the chances that Cade Cunningham ends up being the best player in this series?
I think a lot of that depends, like I said, on how the Knicks react to when the Pistons run their offense at Jalen Brunson rather than at Karl-Anthony Towns, which I think is something that the Pistons were one of the teams that did that during the regular season. If the Knicks are not willing to switch that and they're just getting put in rotation over and over and over, Cade is going to beat that. Like, he's too smart. He's too good a passer. He's too big. He has the size to be able to see whatever you want on the floor. And if you're just hedging and recovering with Brunson, you're not really cutting off his driving lanes anyway. So there's a decent chance, at least on offense. I'm curious to see who the Pistons have him guard on the other end. I think there's an argument to putting him on Brunson, just try to overwhelm him with size, but then have Asar Thompson maybe or Tobias Harris on Karl-Anthony Towns so you can switch those pick and rolls and feel pretty good about it. But that also could be really taxing for him and not allow him to do what the Pistons are going to need him to do offensively. Like, I think there's a chance. I don't think that it's the most likely result, but like I said, if the Knicks are unwilling to make adjustments when he is beating what they're doing, then that raises the possibility.
Joined by Jared Dubin of LastNightInBasketball.com, talking about the NBA playoffs, focusing on Pistons and Knicks right now. That is something I'm pretty intrigued to see too. Like, how do the Pistons try to deal with the Knicks on the defensive side of the ball? But I'm kind of curious your thoughts. Who do you think the Knicks are going to start on Cade? Is it going to be OG or Mikal Bridges?
I think they'll probably start with Bridges on him and try to play their usual drop defense that they play against a lot of teams. And I don't think that will work particularly well because it hasn't all year when they try to play their standard drop. Just teams just go right at Karl-Anthony Towns, and he's going to gift those, pull-up jumpers, and he's going to gift the pocket passes, and he's going to give up stuff at the rim. I don't see that style of defense working particularly well against Cade. If they decide to get a little bit more aggressive, then maybe they could put OG on him, but just make him try to deal with a little bit more size and strength.
Okay. I like the Knicks in 7. I think that the Pistons make this series really tough. I think Isaiah Stewart fights at least 3 people. It's going to be great. I like the Knicks in 7. What are you kind of thinking for this series?
I'm torn between Knicks in 5 just because of the talent and Knicks in 7 because they make it difficult on themselves. I don't really know which way to go just yet.
Yeah, that's totally fair because I like you're so right. Like the best version of the Knicks wins this series in 5. Like you said, they don't always play at their best. I feel like people are just like very casually saying Boston in 5 in that Boston and Orlando series. I think it goes 6. I think Orlando's a little tougher than people realize. I understand that like the offense isn't really there, but what are you kind of expecting from that series?
See, I went the opposite way. I said we're giving the Magic too much credit of being able to win a game, and I took the Celtics in 4.
Oh.
I just don't see a way that Orlando is able to generate enough offense to win a game. Like, there's just no way they're scoring in the half court against that Celtics defense. The Magic, especially, like their half court offense is quite bad to begin with. They were, a bottom 5 offense in the regular season. And the thing that they depend on more than anything else is getting to the free throw line. They had the second highest free throw rate in the league. The Celtics don't foul. They had the lowest opponent free throw rate in the league. So the one source that the Magic have for offense is not really available to them against the Celtics. And then on the other end, like, I just trust Boston's offense even more than I do Orlando's defense. Like, the Magic give up the fewest threes in the league, and opponents don't really necessarily connect on their threes against them. We know Boston is going to get the threes no matter what. And even if the Celtics don't shoot the threes at as high a rate as they normally do, they're still going to have a significant three-point advantage because the Magic don't generate threes at all. You combine that with the likely lack of free throws for the Magic, and it's really hard for me to see them stealing a game unless the Celtics have a game where they just don't show up.
That's totally fair. I'm really curious because Boston's going to win the series. Like, it'd be shocking if they didn't. How worried are you about Jaylen Brown and all this stuff going on with his knee, just in terms of like long-term throughout the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more. Obviously, we don't have a ton of information. We know he got a pain injection, but we haven't really seen him play through this yet. Like, he was out for a little bit, and then he came back and wasn't really himself. And then even down the stretch of the season, he was, sitting out games or sitting out parts of games. It's like, it's really hard to know what to think about it because we haven't seen him on the court since then. To a certain extent, I'm worried as they get deeper into the playoffs, but I mean, we saw them beat the Knicks without him. Not particularly worried about that. So, like, the way the Celtics have played against the Knicks this year, not particularly worried about Jaylen Brown until the Eastern Conference Finals.
Totally fair. Do you think they're better than Cleveland?
I do, yeah. I just think that Boston is a team that is essentially without weaknesses on either side of the ball. And I think that there are a little bit more avenues or pain points that you can poke at when it comes to Cleveland, either offensively, and you sort of test whether they can keep the two bigs on the floor together consistently. That was obviously an issue for them against Boston last year. Much less of an issue during the regular season this year, but you still got to, test and see how it works in that setting. And then I think that there are more areas to attack defensively, whether it's Max Strus or getting size against Darius Garland or trying to space Jared Allen into a lot more space than he's comfortable with, even though he is comfortable out there. There are just more pain points on Cleveland than there are on Boston, I think.
I agree. Joined by Jared Dubin of LastNightBasketball.com, where he does an excellent job writing and covering the NBA. Like, I can see it now. Like, it's game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. It's a 4-point game with like 3 minutes left, and Boston's just like, okay, we're gonna get Garland in a switch, and we're gonna post up Porzingis and Tatum, and we're gonna get a lot of easy buckets off this, whether it's drive and kick threes or it's just isolating Garland. It's exactly what you said. Like, there's just more pain points for Cleveland to poke at than for Boston. As I mentioned earlier, moving out to kind of the West, the series I'm most excited for is Rockets Warriors for many, many reasons. I think casual fans are kind of writing the Rockets off a little too easily. What should people kind of expect in that series?
It's basically all going to come down to whether the Rockets can score in the half court against Golden State's defense. That's like the entire series to me. The Rockets were not particularly good at doing that throughout the regular season. They're going to go against one of the most disciplined and smart defenses in the league, and it's just really, really difficult. They're going to have to sort of overwhelm Golden State with size. I think it needs to be a massive Alperen Şengün series. I think that it's probably going to need to be we're going to go with that double big lineup with Şengün and Steven Adams and try to dominate on the glass series at times. And guys like Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. need to be connecting on their shots that they get at a very high rate. Because if you're not scoring in the half court against this team, I just don't see the path for the Rockets there.
I think that's exactly right. I think every game is going to be close, like down to the wire. And I just trust, obviously Butler and Curry way more than I trust anyone for the Rockets to go and score whenever it's needed. The reason why I'm really excited for the series, Jared, is because you just got all of these just really big personalities. Like Draymond Green doesn't need any sort of introduction. He's got a history with what feels like a lot of these guys on the Rockets, whether it's, Dylan Brooks when he was in Memphis or Steven Adams. You got Ime Udoka saying that the Warriors were crying. That happened like 2 weeks ago. Do you think this is going to be the most emotional series that we see in the first round?
I think it's probably that one or Denver against the Clippers, just because of the way that things are going to play out actually on the court in that series. But just from the personalities involved, it's hard to get more emotional than Draymond Green and Dylan Brooks.
It is. And I love this Rockets team so much. Like, they've been my favorite team to watch this year. And there's a part of me, and I know we're going to get into just some offseason stuff here, which wasn't my goal, but hey, it happens sometimes. There's a part of me that really hopes that they lose in the first round. That way we see them make a big move in the offseason to go get a real star. I don't know if Kevin Durant's the guy I would want, but he seems like the most reasonable option. What do you kind of think what do you think the Rockets' future looks like if they lose this first round series?
I think a lot of it depends on how they lose, if they do. Are they getting blown off the court? And if so, does that say to them, we're not close and therefore we shouldn't be pushing all in? Or does it say to them, we're not close and therefore we should be pushing all in? If they play a really close, hard-fought series against the Warriors, do they then say, we're really close, let's go and get the one guy that'll put us over the top? Or do they say, we're really close, we don't need to get another guy? It's all about just how they decide to react to what type of loss it would be.
Joined by Jared Dubin of LastNightInBasketball.com, talking about the NBA playoffs. Who do you like in that Rockets and Warriors series?
I took the Warriors in 6. Like you said, I just trust, Steph and Jimmy at the end of games more than I trust anybody on the Rockets. And I trust Golden State's defense more than I do Houston's offense. And that's sort of the key to the series to me, is whether Houston can score.
Totally agree. I took the Warriors in 6 as well. Last series here, Lakers and Timberwolves. I took the Lakers in 6 just because they have Luka and LeBron, and as great as Anthony Edwards has been this year, and I don't think people realize that the shooting that we've seen from him this year, and just really the all-around game has been really impressive. I just trust Luka and LeBron more than I trust Randall and Ant. I don't know how much Rudy Gobert is going to get to play in this series because we know that the Lakers like to go small. What are you kind of looking at in this series as to what's going to dictate who wins the series?
I think this is a really bad matchup for Minnesota. I think that for the Wolves to win the series, they have to totally overwhelm the entire series with size and athleticism. And I'm not sure how likely it is that they can do that. Similar to what I said about pain points earlier, like there are so many different pain points that the Lakers can pick at in this series. Like no matter how they line up, to start the game, Mike Conley is going to have to guard Austin Reeves. I think that's a problem for the Wolves. But then if Mike Conley can't be on the court defensively, you take him off the court on offense, and now you're putting the entire offense into the hands of guys who are obviously very good players, but are at times questionable decision makers in Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. And we've seen Julius Randle in the playoffs before when defenses get a little bit more clued up or keyed into what he's doing. Things have not been pretty. And we even saw Edwards in the Western Conference Finals last year that his decision making can get a little bit iffy when he has the ball in his hands at all times and is sort of being trusted as a de facto point guard. That's not something that you want to see either. And that's before we get into things like LeBron and Luka being able to use their size and their strength against whether it's Edwards or Jaden McDaniels on the perimeter or Nickeil Alexander-Walker if he gets thrown into one of those matchups. And then you talk about both those guys dragging Rudy Gobert into space and trying to space him out with the small ball lineouts. Like there are just too many weaknesses for the Lakers to push at for me.
That's how I feel about it as well. I did a video on my YouTube channel, and I mentioned everything that you did. And Minnesota fans got really upset. They're like, "We can go small too," and I was like, "All right, I'm sure you can, guys. That's great for you."
Go small and go with like Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, Edwards, DiVincenzo, and Alexander Walker. Like the Lakers are going to be better than you at small ball.
That's how I feel about it. And I got to be honest, like there's a bit of selfish ambition here because I really want Steph Curry versus LeBron James in the playoffs again, just like for one final time. Because, sadly, like the end is coming for those guys here at some point, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Do you also like the Lakers in 6?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Nice. Which series, last thing for you. Which series are you most looking forward to watching?
It's either Golden State, Houston, or Denver and the Clippers.
Wait, I didn't ask you about Denver and LA. I'm sorry. Really quick. Just kind of your general thoughts on that series and who wins it.
Do we get the Kawhi Leonard that we've seen for the last 25 games or so? Do we get the James Harden that we've seen during that stretch too? If those guys prove too much to stop, that's how the Clippers take the series. And Ivica Zubac has got to be able to at least survive on the other end. Can't get into foul trouble at all. And he's got to be able to turn Jokic into a guy who is averaging 5-6 assists a game rather than 10-12 assists a game, because the Clippers are going to, for the most part, stay in single coverage unless Zubac gets in foul trouble. Once that happens, the Clippers are in big trouble defensively because you're talking about having to guard Jokic with, you're not going to put Drew Eubanks out there. And is it Nick Batum? Is it Kawhi? Do you have to go small at that point? Like that's obviously big trouble because then you have to start sending extra defenders at Jokic, and that's not fun for anybody.
It's not. I took the Nuggets in 7. I think they're finally somewhat healthy. Jamal Murray's back. He's had this whole extra week to hopefully get a little bit healthier. I think they've only had like 34 games this year where Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray have all 4 played. They should be back to that point, and they've got the best player in the series, and I just don't like picking against that guy.
Yeah, I view it similarly to how I viewed the Chiefs over the last couple of years, where I think that the Clippers probably have more matchup advantages and probably have the better team, but I can't bring myself to pick against Jokic in the same way I can't bring myself to pick against Patrick Mahomes. And that worked out for me in last year's Super Bowl, but not this one. So, we'll see what happens with the Nuggets this time around.
It's a real home court advantage as well. Like playing in Denver is tough, which with the elevation, they have a really nice crowd as well. Even though I will say I am very intrigued to see how this Clippers new stadium looks in like a playoff environment.
Yeah, I saw I can't remember who posted a graphic the other day about how the opponent free throw percentage went down by like 3% or something like that, shooting against the wall as opposed to the other end of the court. So it actually has had a legitimate effect.
That's cool. I didn't see that. That's an awesome stat. Jared, thanks for your time, man. As always, I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you again at some point to keep talking about this. I think you cover the NBA as well as anyone. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Have
You
a
got
good
it.
day.
That is Jared Dubin. You can check him out on Twitter at JADubin, Dubin 5. Like I said, he does an excellent job covering the NBA. We'll definitely be sure to have him back on at some point. Zack Gray joining the show here in about 15 minutes. When we come back, though, here in about 3 minutes, I've got an NBA playoff wish list for Fun List Friday that I will throw your way.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, you can also listen via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. It is an excellent place to listen to not only the real Jonathan Smith Show, but also the Dan Dockett Show. And Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue is an excellent place for you to get barbecue. That place is muy delicioso. It's so good. It is the best place in Indy to get real barbecue. And right now, we've got this awesome deal for you at Garrett Smokehouse Barbecue. Get $50 in gift certificates for only $25 over at IndySportsTicket.com. You're doubling your money. Get over there, buy it, go out to eat tonight. That place is amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Speaking of amazing, my take is the YouTube channel. You should also go and subscribe to that. The NBA playoffs start tomorrow. Pacers, 1 o'clock. There was some reporter who said that Damian Lillard is targeting a Game 2 return. Don't know if that's true or not. We'll probably find out from Shams or, Chris Haynes or someone who, really does this at a high level. Can't wait for that series. Can't wait for it. I want the Pacers to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. That is one of the things on my NBA playoff wish list. The NBA Finals felt greedy because the Cavaliers and the Celtics have been two of the, best teams in the NBA all season. And like I said, I don't see the Pacers beating both of them. But if they beat the Cavaliers in the second round, that would be a little less surprising than them beating the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. So Pacers, they get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. I hope. That is one of the things on my NBA playoff wish list. The next thing on the list for Fun List Friday is for the Warriors and Lakers to play each other in the second round. I want to see Steph versus LeBron. They both have legitimate running mates. Both teams are good enough to make it to the Western Conference Finals and give the Oklahoma City Thunder a lot of issues. But I want to see Steph and LeBron against each other at least one more time. Maybe they'll play each other again next year and they'll both continue to be great. I don't know, but I want LeBron versus Steph one more time. Next thing on my NBA wish list, I hope the Knicks lose to the Pistons. I like the Knicks in 7, but I just find the Knicks to be a little overrated. They are uber talented, but they're 15-23 against teams with records over 500. They didn't beat Boston or Oklahoma City or Cleveland once all year. So I think they're a little overrated. They've got a lot of nice little name recognition, but I'm just not convinced that they're as good as what everyone else thinks that they are. Next thing on my wish list, no injuries to anyone on the Thunder, Celtics, or Cavaliers. These are the 3 best teams. I want them at full strength through the entire playoffs, because one of those 3 teams deserves to win the whole thing. From wire to wire, all 3 of them have been nothing short of incredible all season, and hopefully we get to see them fully healthy through the playoffs. Speaking of health, Kawhi Leonard. I want that dude to be healthy for however long the Clippers are in the playoffs, even if it just means 7 games of that first-round series against Denver, because Kawhi Leonard is, when healthy, one of the best players in basketball the last 3 years. He's gone into the playoffs hurt in some way, shape, or form. And this Clipper team is legitimately good. If you wanted to tell me that they were the second best team in the West heading into the playoffs, I wouldn't agree with you. I still think it's Golden State. But I would listen to you, and I would be open to hearing your argument, because they've been nothing short of spectacular these last, quarter of the season. James Harden playing at a high level. Kawhi Leonard's been awesome. Zubac, that's a guy who is going to give votes to be like all NBA this year. Like, they have a legitimately good basketball team, but obviously the head of that snake is Kawhi Leonard, and he has to play in order for them to have a chance to beat the Nuggets and potentially the Oklahoma City Thunder in that second round. Next thing on my NBA playoffs wish list, I want Ime Udoka and Draymond Green to yell at each other for the entire series. Ime Udoka doesn't back down from anybody. It's pretty incredible, honestly. So hopefully we get those 2 guys jawing back and forth. I can still see Ime Udoka and LeBron James getting into it like they did a couple years ago. Ime Udoka and Draymond Green yelling at each other all series would be nothing short of spectacular. Last thing on my NBA playoffs wish list, I want Paolo and Franz to find their offensive groove. Because when those guys are making threes and you legitimately have to worry about them, then the Magic just become a whole different animal. They would give Boston a lot of fits if both of those guys can play at their peak. They haven't really done that here as of late. The Magic defense continues to be very impactful, 4th best defense in the NBA throughout the course of the NBA season. So hopefully we see the best of those 2 guys, because if we do, I think that Boston and Orlando series goes 6 games. So when we come back, I know why you're here. We got Zack Gray coming on at 11:40. He's going to have bets. He's from what I've been seeing, he's been doing a pretty good job betting baseball to start the season. He is a Reds fan, so I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the NL Central because that division is not very good. Last time I checked, my Cubbies were still sitting atop that division despite going through a pretty tough stretch out there on the West Coast playing the Padres and the Dodgers. So we'll probably talk a little baseball. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit of NBA stuff as well. And, of course, sports gambling, all that coming your way here in about 3 minutes with Zack Gray.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith. If you're on Twitter, you should just go look up at ZG The Grapevine, where you will find the best gambling account on Twitter. If you click that link in the bio, it'll take you to a Patreon where you can, buy tools to help you make better bets. Joined by Zack Gray, who sells these tools. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Jay Smith, what's up? It's a beautiful. It might be the best day of the year so far.
You talking about like weather-wise?
Yeah,
dude. Are we old? I feel like this is what old people do. Hey, man, the weather today is beautiful. What do you think?
I have no qualms. I have no qualms talking about the weather in spring because as Midwesterners, we know how brutal it is in the winter. So when we do get a nice day like this, I have no problems making sure it's known that we have probably the best day of the year. Right now, I'm looking out my window. It's about 65 degrees. There's not a cloud in the sky. There's a nice cool breeze coming through the window. Like, how do we get better than that? And I'm talking to you about sports.
It's true. This is pretty great. We're low to mid 70s here with a little bit of cloud cover. It's really nice.
Yeah.
If I was like an avid golfer, like I dabble in the world of golf, I would 1,000% go play today.
I'm going to the range later today.
Nice. Love that. Love that. All right. I don't love it as much as I love my Cubs, though. They look good, man. Kyle Tucker just raking to start the season. Your Reds 9-10, tough loss yesterday. What's going on with the Reds?
Oh my God.
What's up with that reaction?
Well, it's just the way they lost. They were up. They hit a grand slam in the 8th to go up 2 runs. And then they came back out in the top of the 9th, and Emilio Pagan gave up 2 straight homers back to back. First 2 batters of the 9th, tied the game. And then somehow, some way, the Reds ended up losing by 4. They lost 11-7 somehow. Ellie made 2 errors. It was just not good.
Yeah, Ellie making 2 errors. Are they going to wind up moving him to right field at some point, like the Padres did to Tatis?
I don't think so. I don't think he plays as recklessly as Tatis. I just think Ellie's defense, I kind of equate it to like early Marcus Semien, because if you remember, Marcus Semien was one of the worst defenders in baseball, led the league in errors, his first couple years. And now look at him, solid Gold Glove, high level elite defender. I think that's the trajectory that Ellie's on. I think he's got some stuff he's got to keep getting better at. I mean, we got to think here. He's still a young kid in terms of Major League Baseball experience. I think he's 23. So he's going to get better. And, the guy had 5 WAR last year in his second full season. Well, really his first full season. He played 160 games last season. So like people are so fickle with Ellie just because they're not used to having guys like this in Cincinnati that are MVP caliber players, talent-wise, and kind of transcend Cincinnati sports. They're not used to that. So every time he doesn't hit a 480-foot homer or doesn't throw 103 across the diamond, everyone wants to move him to the outfield or sit him down or whatever. It's just not good. But anyway, NL Central. The Cubs are good. I do think they're going to win the division. I have a roster construction question for you.
Okay.
The Astros got rid of Kyle Tucker pretty much, right before they needed to pay him. There's some rumblings. There's some injury concerns there. Do you think the Cubs lock him up to a Vladdy Jr. type deal, or do you think it's going to be more of a shorter term deal?
Oh, geez. They're going to do whatever the cheapest option is because that's just who the Cubs are. They don't pay anybody. They're like one of very few teams in the history of Major League Baseball to never sign a guy to like a $300 million contract. Like they don't want to pay guys. So they're going to do whatever the cheapest thing is, which is probably that short-term deal.
That's fair. But, the NL Central has turned into the AL Central of a couple, when we were growing up. Like the AL Central was super boring. And now the AL Central is kind of cool because the Tigers and Royals are kind of good.
Yeah.
And the NL Central, I think the NL Central is the worst division in baseball, top to bottom.
Oh, without a doubt. There's no doubt about it. Do you agree that the NL East is the best division in baseball?
No, it's the NL West.
Oh, you're right. I'm dumb. I'm sorry. You're right. That's my bad. That is entirely my bad. Sorry, I was looking at Juan Soto's numbers earlier today, and I was going to ask you if you were surprised that he's just gotten off to a pretty slow start. And so, which looked like he's Juan Soto. He's going to be fine. This is just like one of those things where we complain about guys 20 games into the season without remembering that there's like 140 left.
Did you hear what he said about not being with Judge anymore?
Yeah, about how he's like doesn't have as good of a hitter behind him, and Judge is the best hitter in baseball, and I'm sure Mets
Pete
fans just
Alonso's
love
got
that.
1170 OPS or something like that.
He's
Pete Alonso's one of the best hitters in baseball right now.
Dude, he's tearing it up. He's been so good. He's already hit 5 homers. He's hitting like 340. Like he's awesome right now. Juan Soto's. Oh, it's funny.
Do the Braves make a push here and get a chance to do they have a chance to still win the NL East, or are the Braves done?
I don't think they can win the NL East. No, it'll be Philly or the Mets. That's kind of what I'm expecting.
Do you think the Braves make the playoffs?
No, I think they miss.
What's wrong? What happened to them, man? Like, I know they don't have Acuna. I know Strider just made his first start, but like, we were talking about them not too long ago as being one of the best offenses ever that we've seen. And now it's not, they've let a lot of guys, kind of get older. They haven't kind of backfilled guys the way that they were during their peak there. Like, do you think that the Atlanta Braves are going to be in trouble moving forward? Or do you think that, last year and this year are kind of just like reset years and things will get back on track?
I think that they're just going to reset and they'll be fine again in a year or two. Like, Ronald Acuna Jr. is still going to continue to be really good. They've got pitching, like Strider. I think he's a younger guy. I don't know the ages of these dudes, but like
he's younger.
They've got a real ace. They've got a dude in Ronald Acuna who can still really swing it. I don't know how old Matt Olson is, but like that's a solid. He's not Freddie Freeman, obviously, but I think they'll be fine here in the next couple of years.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like Matt Olson and Austin Riley haven't really, like they kind of go off and on with their seasons of production. And like, I feel like if you get a good Matt Olson and a good Austin Riley, that team wins 90 to 100 games. I think it's that simple for those guys to turn it on. And then you have Osuna from the Braves on there too, but he just got hurt. That team's weird, man, because like there's no reason that they should have a worse record than the Reds.
Yeah, they really shouldn't. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. No bets today. His projections aren't out quite yet. But if you want to follow him at ZG The Grapevine, you can check out the link in his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. The NL East is weird. Yeah, like the Marlins have almost twice as many wins as the Braves, which is wild.
Yeah, and then so it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough, Jay Smith, because I got to balance watching baseball and I got to watch. You talked me into it. I'm going to watch the NBA playoffs.
Let's go, dude. I'm so jacked up for tomorrow. Like I think Pacers Bucks is going to be a lot of fun. Timberwolves Lakers. I like your Lakers in 6. Honestly, if they won in 5, I don't think I'd be surprised by that either. But dude, Rockets Warriors is going to be cinema. I can't wait for that series.
What are your playoff predictions? What are you like? What's your finals?
Okay, so I'll give you those, and then I've got 3 big takes. Okay.
Okay.
So wait, do you want like who I have in the finals, or do you just want who I have winning every series?
Yeah, go through your bracket.
Okay. Boston over the Magic in 6. Cleveland sweeps whoever they play. Knicks over the Pistons in 7. Pacers over the Bucks in 7. Warriors over the Rockets in 6. Thunder sweep whoever they play. Lakers over the Timberwolves in 6, and I like the Nuggets over the Clippers in 7.
Ooh, you like the Nuggets over the Clippers? That's the one where I don't necessarily think I agree.
I don't feel great about it. I'll be honest with you. But I think one of the important things to know is the Nuggets only had like 34 games this year where Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. all actually played together. So like they've just been really banged up this year. They're finally healthy. And with the Clippers, like they're awesome too. Like if you told me that they were the second best team in the West, like I would have to listen to you because they've been so good. But I don't want to pick against Jokic because he is the best player in the world.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against Jokic, but you kind of have seen like he can really kind of go off and still not win. Like, I feel like this is going to sound maybe blasphemous. You're going to hate me for this, but like in LeBron's prime, he was winning. He was getting to the finals. I don't feel like we get that same type of consistency with Jokic.
Well, I think part of it, and this is not me trying to take shots, I promise. Like, this Western Conference the past couple of years, it's been a little tougher than, the Eastern Conferences that LeBron won in. Is that not fair?
I guess, but if you're if you've three-peated MVPs, like, what does that matter?
I who you play against matters. Like, I mean, like when your toughest competition's DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, like that's a little different than having to play like the Golden State Warriors with Steph, or I'm trying to think who else has been really good. The Thunder were good last year. The Mavericks with Luka. Like, I think that's a little bit different.
You think that's different than you think losing to those teams is different than absolutely destroying a whole conference by yourself?
But the conference wasn't as good.
So this is the Michael Jordan thing where we're gonna value.
I never brought up Michael Jordan. I'm just saying.
Right, but it's a similar stance where we're gonna say, oh, Michael Jordan had to go through, X, Y, Z, and they lost, and that's somehow better because they lost than someone who went through and won against who they played.
Joined by Zack Gray, one of the best sports gamblers you'll find. Follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, sure, like LeBron won that conference, but whenever he played against whatever Western Conference team he ran into the finals, he didn't win. Like,
that's not true.
He's what, 4-6?
Right, but we got to think here. He beat the Spurs and the Warriors at their peak.
He did. I mean, the title that Jokic won. I got to go back and look. I don't want to get my information wrong.
They played the Heat.
They were good.
No, they weren't.
That's my point. The Eastern Conference hasn't been as good as the West.
But you're talking about one compared to multiple.
What do you mean?
You're talking about one finals that Jokic has won. He hasn't even gotten to a second finals yet.
Because the Western Conference is tougher than the Eastern Conference.
Oh my gosh.
Is that the Western Conference has been better than the East?
Sure, but we're not. Are we rewarding a guy because he keeps losing?
No, I'm just I never said he was LeBron. I'm just saying that. Like, in a series, I'm more inclined to take the team with the best player, especially when I think that they're even.
But the Clippers have been playing better.
They have been, but Jamal Murray
they have a full-time coach, Jonathan.
That's true. It's very true. And Tyronn Lue is an excellent head coach. But
they don't have Russell Westbrook, Jonathan.
They don't. That is a very big wild card in this series. But like the Nuggets haven't been healthy. Like when you're Jokic all by yourself and there's no Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon's been in and out with his calf thing and Michael Porter Jr. has missed time. Like it's tough to win when you don't consistently have your second, third, and fourth best players.
Boy, I wish you gave that grace to LeBron.
What are you talking about? I have never bashed LeBron for losing the NBA Finals where Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving got hurt.
I don't think I knew you then, but it feels like that's something you would do.
Back in the day, yes. But I am reformed, Zach. But yeah, like I just, like I do think that series goes 7. I also think that winning in Denver is really tough, just with the altitude and like they've got a pretty good home court advantage as well.
Do you think we see vintage Kawhi?
I really hope so. I really do. He's been so good the final 25 games of the year. Not quite as good as Toronto Kawhi, but still awesome. I really hope we do, and I think we will. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you obviously always have to worry about the health thing. I feel like every time Kawhi goes into the playoffs after the first game. It's like Kawhi's got a swollen knee, and it's like questionable, and then he won't play game 2, and they'll be like, yeah, he's coming back game 3, and then they'll go Kawhi Leonard out for the season, just out of nowhere, just randomly, swollen knee, done.
It's tough. Zach, I got to run. I'm glad we argued at least a little bit today. That's always good stuff. I will talk to you, I'm sure, a little bit tomorrow during the games, and hopefully we'll have you on again this next Friday.
All right, man. Appreciate you, Jay Smith.
See ya. That is Zack Gray. Whoop.